Okay, this is wetNET, a link aggregation friendly IP and subnet host provisioner. It's written in Python with a MySQL DB backend and the iplib CIDR library. We're going to start out with an empty database, so we're going to create our organization here. So we have that, and if we want to query it, it'll show us our organizations. If we run wetNET without any parameters, it'll give us all the available parameters. There's also an example.txt included in the code, which is available on GitHub as C3W, and the project name is wetNET. So now we have our organization. We're going to create our first supernet. Now the supernet is the largest network that this organization is going to route. We get multiple supernets per organization. So let's start out with a 10net. Give it a /19. Give it the organization Cisco. It's going to go ahead and stripe a bunch of /24s in the database, which we'll use to subnet further into smaller subnets. So if we want to look at our supernets, they're there. Notice the %sign. It's SQL syntax, so this is sort of a SQL injection kind of thing. But you could do searches for the org there. Let's see. So next, we're going to create a set. Now, what a set does is takes your /24. So we're going to take the first one, and we're going to subnet it into /27s. And we're given a route identifier SFO01. Now the idea here is your route identifier should be either on a device or at least in the same room, a data center, an upstream router, something that it could aggregate on. So the idea is later when we're asking it to give us subnets and IPs and hosts, we tell it where we are, and it gives us the most link aggregation friendly host name out of that block. This is going to stripe a bunch of /27s on the /24. It also secretly is striping the host names. So here we go. Let's see. So if we go wetNet query set 10.0.0.0 /24, it's going to tell us that /24 is subnetted as /27s, and the route identifier is SFO01. Here we're going to create a subnet. So we have a customer, or we have a project, or we have something that has an identifier, and we're going to create a subnet. We're going to start out on the first one there that we allocated, so the very first one, and we're going to call this Farmer Joe. This is just following the example.txt file that's included in the code base. So there it goes. This first /27 is there, and now we can query it as Farmer Joe. It'll give us that. We could also use SQL syntax here, so just show whatever you need. Now here's where the fun part comes in. We're going to use the magic provisioner to give us a subnet. We have these /27s allocated. There's some empty ones. There's a bunch of them in there. We allocated one manually. Now we're going to go and do a magic subnet, and we're going to tell it the route ID, SFO01. We tell it we want a /27, and we're going to allocate this for SkyMall. So what it did was it took the next one, which is the .32 boundary, which is the next one up, and gives us the identifier SkyMall. And we can query this SkyMall. That's a bug. Okay, gonna fix that bug. But anyway, the query's failing, but the subnet is in there okay. So now we're going to go and get a magic host. So we're going to get this host, and we're going to give it the subnet, which is the very first. This is Farmer Joe's subnet, and we're going to give it a name, and it's going to update that in the database. See, it gives us the first available one, which is .1. It'll never give out a network or broadcast IP for the auto provisioners. Those aren't even in the database. They're not striped in the database at all, so there's no way to access those. Now we're going to take a look at routes. We're going to do a query route SFO01, type the right thing, and it's going to give us all the subnets that are tied to SFO01. We could have multiple /24s. It would just output all of them there. Now if we go and query a subnet, it's going to give us all the IPs in that subnet. And you'll see the very first one was that magic host we got, my web server top level domain. Let's see, what else can we do here? We can do, we can create a host. So if we want to create one manually, we can do that. We could call this hello world.sfogate.pld, and it does that. And if we ran the query subnet again, you'll see it's the .2 is manually configured there. And now that it's manually configured, the magic hostname will never use it. It looks for null entries within a subnet to allocate. Now what do we do to clean things up? We could do a wetNET clear IP, and it clears. It gives us a host name just in case we did this by mistake. At least we have the host name there. We could add it back in. But that is cleared, and if we do a query again, we'll see that it's no longer in the database. And that's it. More soon. This is just a demo. The code, once again, is on GitHub, C3W, wetNET, and there's some documentation there, and looking to refactor the code a bit, make the SQL all nice, and maybe split up some of the code. But right now it's in prototype phase, and this is it. It works. So let me know what you think. Thanks. Bye.